Okay, sorry about that. I had to cut off the live stream and reboot it. I guess YouTube capped it. We were live for like a week and a half straight. Anyway, let me open up phones right away, and I'll put a list of topics on the screen. Thanks everyone who showed up early. I'm actually like 30 seconds early. Message notifications should have gone out. There's intro music. We had Chief Crow playing just a minute ago. I'll put a link if anybody wants that track. Edge is in your mind. Didn't mean to cut it off rudely like that. Let me go ahead and put a link in the chat. Okay. And if you look on the top left, you can see it says live or replay, depending on what our whether we're replaying something or we're actually taking calls. So right now we are indeed taking calls. I'll put the number on the screen as well in case anyone here doesn't know. It's 833 311 1984. 1984 started on 311 in its most overt form, but it's always been 1984. Okay, a couple of the topics though. I did watch the new Flat Earth documentary. Eric Dubay wasn't in it, which is kind of strange. It was called Next Level, so we may discuss that one a little bit. Also, I think we can talk about the Jeff Bezos, his Tower of Babel, and The Man Who Fell to Earth is another thing as well. The Man Who Fell to Earth story, or movie, starring David Bowie, is now a Showtime series. And I watched the trailer, and there's a number of things about it that stood out. So if you look at the various composites that when we're looking at the space papacy, the space popes, you got Musk, you got Bezos. These are composites. And we often speak about how Musk is a composite of Wernher von Braun, Willy Wonka, and Tony Stark. Well, Bezos is a mashup of Dr. Evil and The Man Who Fell to Earth. And there's a few storylines that connect the two, including Bezos' space program, and we'll get into all of this. But the newest iteration, or the new movie, The Man Who Fell to Earth, the sneak preview, has a lot of interesting references in here. In fact, at one point, the individual who's basically a Martian describes himself as having raised himself from the dead, like Lazarus, which is a very significant tie-in to David Bowie, who released a track and a play, Lazarus, just before he fake died, which seems to be about the man who fell to Earth's return, or his ascension after his descent. And I think this character, who's in the new version of A Man Who Fell to Earth, appears to be a combination of Musk, Bezos, and Tom Newton from The Man Who Fell to Earth. A lot of nods to Bowie here. I'll play a few seconds of the trailer.
Cosmic shape of every choice we've made. Would it look like a straight timeline? A staircase?
Well, it looks like a good movie. I'll probably check it out, but it starts off with the stuff you would usually expect, which is disaster. They ruined their planet, probably because of capitalists or something. But another thing I noticed here quite early on is in the intro, they actually show the main character as a Burning Man, with all this talk about being reborn, being like Lazarus. And I'll pause on one of these clips. I don't want to get a copyright strike. This is protected propaganda, but I will be watching it and reviewing it. But the symbol of the Burning Man, or the Phoenix, is something I was talking about today. Here's the clip, if you can see it. It's kind of small, but you see him as he's burning while he's talking about being born again. And this reiterates the meaning of the Phoenix and the reset, and even how they use these repeated themes, like the man who set himself on fire in DC a couple of days ago. Was that just yesterday? His name was Wayne Bruce, like Bruce Wayne, a very Batman-esque thing, but this is very similar to after the Joker movie. He had the Joaquin Phoenix burning like a phoenix. You had the guy in the Ellipsis, also in DC, setting himself on fire. On the anniversary of the Burning Man festivals, Kanye West set himself on fire. So this is not a coincidence here. And these stories all do tie together, and the symbolism is very consistent throughout. Again, it's The Man Who Fell to Earth premieres actually tonight on Showtime. I'll play a few seconds so you can get an idea of the tone here, where he's talking as this CEO. Let me give you some background from Wiki, and you'll see the obvious Bezos overlap. This was a 76 science fiction film based on a 63 novel. It follows an extraterrestrial who crash lands on Earth, seeking a way to ship water to his planet that's suffering from a drought. And of course he has to deal with the rich, the greedy, the capitalists, and all this stuff, because this is a recurring theme. The whole space program has always gone along with the environmentalist narrative, the fragile Earth that needs to be saved from the parasite humans. So the story is about Thomas Newton, an alien, and that's played by David Bowie, who lands in New Mexico. So this is a tie-in to Jeff Bezos, who also is a humanoid alien, possibly. But anyway, he arrived in New Mexico. So if you look into the characters, this is where I want to show some of the overlap. The trajectory of their lives is what I'm kind of looking at too, because the guy who falls to Earth, this Martian, here we go, born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, January 1964, January 12th, okay. What was David Bowie's death date? Does anybody have that? I know he shares a birth date with Elvis Presley. January 10th was his date of death. Okay, I'm just looking into that just in case there's anything of note here. But the main point is this. He lands on Earth, and then he uses his knowledge of advanced technology from his home planet to patent inventions. And he acquires tremendous wealth. And he heads the World Enterprise Corporation. So the World Enterprises Corporation is basically Amazon, is my point. And then this corporation is what's needed to construct a space vehicle to send water back to his home planet. Then there's a couple of other things. He has these reptilian-like eyes, so he's got to wear contact lenses. So if you go through the images of David Bowie, not just in this movie where he's obviously playing some kind of an alien. Here's an example in the film. You can see he's got the reptoid eye that he's putting the cover over. But in real life, they always made it a point to emphasize that one of his eyes has a dilated pupil and seems to be off color. And this to me is all just symbolism. It's part of the character. Another thing about David Bowie is you cannot separate this character from the space program or from Space Odyssey and David Bowman. And the story of that character and his merging with the monolith and becoming a star child has everything to do with David Bowie, his music in the space program, the first music video. Musk sent the Tesla Roadster with Starman. So the Starman, Star Child, these are both New Age, Thelemic concepts that also tie into Space Oddity. And Space Odyssey, and again, this David Bowman, David Bowie overlap. So I'm just pointing this out, that these are world stage characters that have some overlap. And just as Willy Wonka and Tony Stark lend some character to Musk's persona, there's a bit of Man Who Fell to Earth in Bezos, in addition to Nimrod, which we'll get into. Again, David Bowie pictures, just note the asymmetry in the eye. And now look at shots of Bezos, which isn't so much anymore since his recent cosmetic upgrades, but if you note, there does seem to be an emphasis on his left eye, and it's a very consistent thing. And I thought, does he have some kind of tech, an AVR lens? Something going on here? Lasers? Kind of reminded me of Dr. Evil. Maybe that's part of building that persona. And another part of Bezos, the Bezos construct, is in fact Dr. Evil. Like it's no joke. It's not. I mean, it's not insignificant that his rockets are notably now designed to resemble, you know, well, I don't know. It depends on what you want to give him artistic license, I guess. It's just aerodynamic. But there's no denying that Dr. Evil literally has rockets that look like dongs. So the comparison between Bezos' rocket and Dr. Evil, yeah, people make fun of it, but I'm saying maybe he doesn't have plausible deniability. Maybe this is in fact intentional. And I would actually suggest that the use of dead sun gods and all the phallic symbolism go hand in hand. So I think it's more likely than not that this is an inside joke. But the resemblance between Bezos and Dr. Evil, the bald head for sure, but also Dr. Evil has a scar on one eye. And he does this gesture where he puts his pinky on his lip, which might be another way of signaling the 666 if you look at it. You know, instead of with the middle ring and pinky pointed up, you could do this way as well. And I've seen, anyway, let's go through your comments. I don't want to get too far ahead. Joined by again D3342, Lori Borealis, AK All Day 2323, that SOB, a Woodward, Zinvalis G Reg 85, looking in, A Garcia, Lando Rock, Truth Hurts 21 asks, does Dubé drink his own pee also? You know, I don't know. Dubé is kind of mysterious. I can tell you one thing about Dubé that hasn't been discussed in any of these documentaries. Eric Dubé knows who Q is, which this is a fact, and I can prove it. And he's been not busted, but rather exposed as having, yeah, a pretty open line of communication with the MGTV, now known as George News, aka Q. So that's kind of noteworthy. It's also noteworthy that he's conducted interviews in mainstream publications like Forbes under a different name. The name Eric Dubé uses when he's not Eric Dubé, J. DeCaspi. J. DeCaspi. He actually deepfakes as some kind of Los Angeles-based underwear model. Okay, let's continue. Ellen Crooks is here. Battery 79 says, was fed the fake flat earther in next level. If by fed, because I think they might all be feds, I think you mean Flat Earth Dave. I wouldn't say he's a fake flat earther, but you know what I noticed about this new documentary is they didn't say the word dome once. They didn't mention the Bible. The flat earth in the past has always been constrained by this notion that we live beneath a dome and there's no more land, there's nowhere to go, and you might as well just sit around and go to Sunday school and study the Bible literally. And that's where it went. They just buried the topic as best they could. But now apparently they've all done a 180, and now they're all talking about more land as the best explanation for a deception in the first place, as though it just now occurred to them. It occurred to us on this channel. We were already going down this line of discourse in 2016, 2017. This was pretty much the main topic was, why would you assume there to be a dome? Like that's, or even a wall. You have a bunch of lost sheep, apparently. So they send out these feds, this is the theory, to convince the lost sheep that there's a wall around them. No, there's nowhere to go anyway. There's an ice wall. Might as well just study the Bible and make friends. There's a dome, nowhere to go. But now they've changed the topic for some reason to what's out there beyond the edge. And I think it's a good development, to be honest. I noticed too, they don't say infinite. They have a weird euphemism, like infinite outer space area, or not finite plane, or they really don't want to say the word infinite. I don't know why. I'm not really sure. Thanks, Battery 79. I'm not sure why the Godzilla noise isn't happening. Usually you hear the cracking in the background. Not sure. Anyway, appreciate the support, Battery 79. I actually have the night off work, I'm sort of like, kind of on call, and I don't know for sure, until about 10 o'clock p.m., maybe 9. We've been talking about gorilla deniers, the ice wall, Meme-mageddon. Jeff Bezos' Tower of Babel has been green-lighted, so that's been kind of the main topic of the day, because I've been looking into the character of Nimrod, who builds, and here's another parallel for you that goes along with this way that Bezos flaunts his wealth. He's on his mega yacht, showing off his lavish lifestyle, and he's kind of like, if you look at Nimrod, there's a reason why I used him in the thumbnail. It's like he's flaunting his wealth, but not only that, the modern day replacement for the vengeful god that floods the world, that judges man for his worldly ways, is global warming. So by even having a mega yacht, by even being a billionaire, which is unsustainable, he's basically challenging God, the globe. He's saying, I don't care global warming, I'm going to do my thing. Daring the globe to strike him down, daring some kind of retribution. And this is what Nimrod did by building his tower. And this is a reoccurring theme in a number of the recent movies and films, like Don't Look Up. The main theme there is just, these are the modern Noahs, these scientists. We have to listen to them and not to these people who are just trying to make themselves even richer. So I'm looking at this also as just symbolic. I don't think Jeff Bezos is actually going up into space, but I think it's all very symbolic. But he did launch on the day that man landed on the moon. And that's a significant day. I mean, think about the phrase, one small step for man, one giant leap for all mankind. This giant leap for all mankind, I think, has to do with man collectively going from Earth and becoming, spacefaring, but going into the heavens, which is an incursion into the heavenly realms. And this is what triggers the whole thing being toppled. And the foreshadowing is built into this, because he did launch at 9:11 a.m. on the day of Apollo 11. And so these two dates, or these two events and dates and timestamps, I think positively connect it to Kubrick as the common director of 9/11 and Apollo 11. And moreover, it's been heavily foreshadowed in Kubrick's work that the space station is going to come down, that is going to be the Tower of Babel falling. And so Bezos launching at 9/11 does correlate, I think, to Richard Branson as well, sending his space plane up on the anniversary of Skylab falling. The 42nd anniversary of Skylab falling, Branson sends a space plane which launches between these twin planes called the White Knight 2. And again, this would connect to the space plane that visually resembles the plane striking the Twin Towers. So there's a bit of, I would say, scripting here suggesting that what we're seeing with Bezos and his Helix Tower that's going to be opening up in Virginia, we're seeing that he's being presented to us as Nimrod, the builder of the tower that allows man to invade heaven. And again, the final point on this is that Netflix has the show called Inside Job, which is all about conspiracy theorists. Again, Alex Jones started the Inside Job meme. And on Inside Job, Bezos is devoured by a kraken. So, I'm going to play that clip because the mega yacht symbolizes the Titanic, which is another way of representing this Tower of Babel concept.
The Coast Guard said they can tow your yacht into shore. I got a better plan. Look! Is that a kraken?
Hell yes! I'm about to collect on my yacht insurance policy.
Hey, has anyone seen Jeff Bezos?
Is the fight over, guys? This is why I don't allow bathroom break!
So there you have it, the kraken. And when you really get into the kraken symbolism as it's been presented to us, a lot of it does tie in geographically to Seattle in particular, which is kind of noteworthy because Amazon and Seattle, and even though he stepped down from Amazon on the 33rd day of the year 2021. Joined by AJ206, Dang, Hippie Langstruff, Enslaved by Truth. Battery 79 asks, didn't Bowie play the main role in Omnivore? And he also did the soundtrack. Salty Siren, Penguin Doctor's here. Yes, oh, someone mentioned Intimate Plane. Look, I was approached, or rather contacted by one of the main conference organizers from the Flat Earth conferences, and he said, there's no way we live on an infinite plane. We live on an intimate plane. So what they were trying to do is they were trying to convince anybody who thought the globe might be something of a lie, a misrepresentation. They wanted them to think smaller and to join a small community, become part of a cult, rather than, I don't know, mass exodus. So I look at the whole thing with the dome concept as something of a containment operation. So it's kind of interesting that, yeah, this new Flat Earth documentary has no mention of any kind of domes. And we may go through some aspects to that documentary. There were some interesting things in there. I thought it was somewhat conspicuous that SODD TV was posing in front of some handguns with some MAGA-style hats. And I'm like, why would some flat earther on a documentary by Black Sun Productions, and look up Black Sun. And, okay, this is really interesting too. So the whole time that Hibbler from Hibbler Productions was being interviewed by Alex Jones, or they're hanging out and talking. So Hibbler's on with Alex Jones and Eddie Bravo, and here's a clip here. Hibbler ruined the podcast with Alex Jones. Tinfoil hat. Okay, here we go. Anyway, Alex was constantly calling him, or mixing Hibbler and Hitler, and he kept saying, "Hail Hibbler."
Representing the people who believe we live on a ball. To know him is to love him. Alex Jones, how are you, Alex?
That's right, Team Ball. No. I think we all live in any...
So, I mean, this is a really good podcast, by the way. I mean, I thought it was pretty funny all around. But my point is, Jones is repeatedly calling out Hibbler as Hitler for some weird reason.
30 years younger than drinking baby's blood.
That soundbite's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life. I'm gonna blow it out.
Who's that guy with Eddie? He's named Baby Hitler?
No, he's not baby.
See, called him Baby Hitler. And I listened to the whole podcast, and this is a running joke. In fact, they even invited Alex to go to, I believe, Float Fest and do a 15-minute comedy sketch. And they said, "We know you're not Bill Hicks, but can you do a comedy skit?" Anyway, again, he keeps calling Hibbler Hitler, and Hibbler doesn't seem to mind. And he talks about how he's of German descent.
He's named Baby Hitler?
No, he's not baby. Hibbler with a B.
Hibbler, all right.
I think Alex Jones should do a 15-minute comedy set.
Absolutely. They
think you're Bill Hicks, so you might as well do it.
I think all three of us.
Okay, so that's enough of that. But my point is, Hibbler is the one behind this very well-produced documentary. I mean, it is a good documentary. Production-wise, whatever, there's no complaints whatsoever. Sean Hibbler. But the thing about it, again, is one, ODD TV shows up with guns and a MAGA hat with the MAGA band beard. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Truth is hard to swallow. I think that conflicts with Dave Murphy, who advocates for urine therapy. ODD TV, Nazi. According to the media, I mean, what else can you say? But finally, Black Sun Productions. Well, if you search Black Sun, what do you get? The Black Sun is a Nazi symbol typical of the sun wheel employed by Nazi Germany and later neo-Nazis and some strains, mind viruses of Satanism. So, you name your production company off of a main Nazi symbol. You affiliate with Nazis. Bill Hicks calls you Hitler. And what now? I mean, Off the Edge by Kelly Weil from the Daily Beast was like a 200-page hit piece, basically saying that the flat earth topic is drowned out by Hail Hitler and bad rapping. And it's like, why do they keep proving her right? I've worked hard my whole life. Yeah, I've heard stories. I have. I've recently taken on a driving job, and I already have an impinged shoulder. And my hands were... I had to adjust. My posture is where it was. You know, it's like if you sit in a cubicle all day. You know, it's the same thing. It's just a moving cubicle. Alright, let's go ahead and continue. I just didn't mean to get too sidetracked, but my only criticism of the documentary is that it's not really a documentary. It doesn't really document anything. In fact, it kind of ignored the last 5 years, which is really strange. And all the key people in it, and key events. It almost seems like damage control, or one person's selective observation. But you know how the media likes to mud flood over the truth and present itself in the best light and erase its enemies? That's what I saw with this level. I didn't really see anything that was... I mean, there's some good material in there in terms of green screen glitches, but, you know, does it do anything? I think the main thing, I guess, is it probably introduced the concept of the Earth being a potential... we'll just say the globe model rather being a hoax, but it doesn't limit it instantly to the idea of an ice wall. Although, they're repeatedly offered money from Alex Jones to go check out Antarctica, and they keep saying no. Eddie Bravo is adamantly against going south. So is Hibbler. They say you can't go. That's their answer. You'll get killed, you'll be misdirected. They're not even open to the possibility. They're not even willing to get in a boat and go to the edge just to get a lot of attention to point out how you can't go. And so this is a very gatekeeperish documentary, if anything. You know, why are you even discussing the notion that the most compelling explanation for a false model of the world would be to constrain human migration? Why would you even posit that and then say, oh, but you can't go anywhere? When you have Bill Hicks offering to pay for you to go over the edge. Okay, so we've been talking about the man who fell to Earth. Again, a lot of it is pretty much about the Earth being destroyed by human parasites, and this guy from another planet comes down and he sees that we're making the same mistake. Again, here he is in the movie, in the trailer, burning as a Burning Man.
Valley of Shadows. Come. I had to step into a new skin.
Okay, here's the part where he says, rise like Lazarus. Which ties in...
Lazarus. I had...
Okay, so Lazarus. So, Bowie's video Lazarus was released, you know, as part of the album and the play. It all came out pretty much after he died. But this ties in to the man who fell to Earth. It represents his ascension. So Lazarus, released on 17 December. It was the second single from Black Star. And of course, Starman, Star Child. This is the Space Odyssey connection. And of course, Starman is the guy in the Tesla Roadster. Okay, so in addition to its release on Black Star, the track is used in Bowie's off-Broadway musical of the same name. And when you look at these meta-scripted characters, you find that they're often interrelated. It is noteworthy to me that Bowie and Elvis have the same birthday. Elvis died at 42, David Bowie, DB, 42. And the number 42 is generally associated with falling. And there's even more here in the Man Who Fell to Earth trailer worth looking at that has some very heavy Saturnian symbolism. I'm going to pull this trailer up again. It's on Showtime, it's premiering tonight, and I'll be watching it because I've already talked about this Man Who Fell to Earth and part of the Bowie storyline, connected to the space storyline, and even connecting to Bezos and the trajectory of his life, building this big corporation so he can afford to go to space. So after he rises like Lazarus, he becomes this tech billionaire, And he compares himself to Willy Wonka, which is kind of noteworthy because if you've noticed, Elon Musk has been trying to associate himself with Willy Wonka, with his boring company, purchasing Gene Wilder's house, toying with the idea of producing candy, and then his eccentricities. He's very much like Gene Wilder in some senses on purpose. And in The Man Who Fell to Earth, in the trailer, he compares himself to Gene Wilder for a moment.
My desert bunker, which is shaped like an egg. They call me a tyrant, a king, a tech god, Willy Wonka.
A tech god, Willy Wonka. So, I haven't watched it yet, but I can already detect that there's something of an amalgamation here of Musk and Bezos kind of built into him. Again, Lazarus is an obvious connection to Bowie. And what he does here, though, is he walks up to this box, and it is a six-pointed star. So this is a Saturn reference. It's a hexagon. And of course, Black Star, the Bowie album, has Lazarus. And this is an individual here who's something of a star, a tech god, and he's a man who fell to Earth. So there's some interesting connections here already just in the symbolism on this trailer.
Well, today, this one drops the R. In this box.
I also want to point out that the Burning Man festivals, there were 33 of them, they were happening at Black Rock City, Nevada. So Black Rock City, Nevada, Burning Man for 33 years. They interrupted for COVID, but then last year, on the anniversary of where you would normally have a Burning Man festival, Kanye West, a rock star, sets himself on fire. And so this Phoenix ritual thing tying into this character is also noteworthy. And again, he's holding this symbol of Saturn, this black rock in his hand.
I hold the next step on the great timeline. But before I show you what's inside, I want to tell you my story.
So this, to me, also reminds me of so many ways they've represented this symbol, but I don't want to get off track. But if you ever looked into the Hellraiser series, the lament configuration and the character of Pinhead, this psychopomp, has a lot of interesting Saturnian references. But I'll be doing a review of this now that it's premiering. Again, it's a man who fell down to Earth, or the man who fell to Earth. Okay, let me see. I'm going through your comments. Angst G says Lazarus creepy video. Yes, I would say so. The David Bowie album, Black Star, all around is somewhat creepy. I guess you'd call it jazz or gothic rock. Let's see. Lazarus is a swan song, according to his producer, a self-epitaph, a commentary on his own impending death. I mean, how often do we have musicians mentioning that they're about to die in their latest tweets, their latest Instagram posts, in their albums? We recently discussed Prince. His death anniversary was just a few days ago. And there are some connections between all of these death fakers. They exist in the same fictional universe. The official music video for Lazarus was uploaded on 7 January. Now, he died 3 days later. His birthday, again, was on the 8th, which is Elvis's birthday, and Elvis had a song before he died. I believe it was also called Black Star. Okay, so they say he died of cancer, I believe 69. Let me take a look. And there was someone else who passed along the same time as him. It was a guy who was the head Slytherin. Yeah, see, the cancer symbol is symbolized by a sideways 69. And at the time we were looking into this, there were some suggestions that the word cancer in this context, in the context of a hypothetical death faker, could be an astrological reference. Because just as the sun hangs on the cross for 3 days on the winter solstice, during the summer solstice, when it entered the crab, we're talking about an astrological symbol, Cancer, it moves sideways like a crab for 3 days. And in the video, you did see a lot of this. Like, as you can see here, he's posing like Christ. So I'm more likely to conclude here. I would say that this is a symbol of a sun worship reference. It has to do with the astrological significance of the symbol 69 and Cancer, the zodiacal symbol, not a terminal illness. In fact, like Lazarus, so Lazarus comes back from the dead, and after Bowie died, several days later, he came back dressed up as one of his producers, Jack Stephen. And I've seen other footage of Jack Stephen, and it's not the same guy. He's like, you know, you borrow your friend's wardrobe for some reason. You borrow a jacket. Well, no, he's like, can I borrow your persona, your identity, your face? That's what it looks like. Because this is obviously Bowie in a wig. Not only is he in a wig, but he's got some kind of a plumper. Maybe he's wearing some padding, but it's definitely the same guy. And he shows up on Sky News. So just as Lazarus comes back from the dead, Bowie comes back from the dead. And there's a few parts here where it gets pixelated. And I think they intentionally pixelated it where it was too obviously him. And even with the contacts that he's wearing, you can still detect a dilated pupil. David Bowie died of cancer, 69? I don't think so.
Taking place here. So obviously David Bowie, you can hear
Got a short clip here from Roddy Piper.
the voice, mannerisms, and also note where he makes a mistake and he stumbles a few times and he refers to himself as David Bowie as I when he's asked questions as a music executive. He's talking like he is referring to.
He says, when David Bowie died, a part of me died, which is what you would expect him to say. And you see this grin on his face? You know what? Eating grin? Like, what is that? It's Duper's Delight.
Of fortune music
It's actually Fortress music.
Fortress music.
Okay, now you see the pixelation over his face? Now, I saw this when it first aired, and I was like, wait, why are they airing this if it's so badly pixelated? Well, I think they did this to cover up. And even here, it kind of looks like the trademark David Bowie image where he has the lightning bolt over one eye.
In Jack Stephen, he is director of Fortune Music.
It's actually Fortress music.
Fortress music.
Yes.
Do beg your pardon,
never
Jack.
mind.
Fortress Music, and worked as in the music industry as an executive in the Bowie era, and also Bowie's fashion sense we're going to talk about as well. It's influenced the era. And Lizzie Zeta, fashion stylist, is with. Welcome to you both. Apologies again,
No
Jack.
problem.
I mean, but perhaps first sum up how you felt this morning when.
Okay, here it is. Here's where he says that a part of him died when David Bowie died. Yeah, it's because the character that you were portraying.
When you heard this.
I was just saying earlier that I actually felt that part of me had died. I mean, I have to say that's how much an influence he is, I think.
And again, more pixelation covering the obvious resemblance. So this has been covered at length, but it is consistent with the storyline, Lazarus rising from dead. Going through some comments here. Rich Flat says, Neil Tyson says you can't see the Earth curve in Bezos' flight. Is he implying the video of the curve is faked? Well, they mix and match, you know, they're so ambiguous about it. And these days, it doesn't even matter, I don't think. You know, I don't think people can tell the difference. We've passed the point of no return. If you can't see through some of these bigger psyops, it's because you've been visually dumbed down. And I think someone who gave this away recently was Douglas Trumbull, who did special effects for Space Odyssey. And he said that the organic effects look so much better and they age better than the digital effects, which don't look as good because it's still a medium that's just developing so rapidly. And so, my point being, we have generations growing up on digital only, not organic effects, and so I think this has impaired their ability to see through the BS. So I look at many examples of videos on Twitter. Starship lands and people are amazed by it, their jaws are dropping, they're having their overjaw effect. They want to go to Mars, they're making life plans to give up everything and go work for Musk and make candy in some space gulag. And then someone at the bottom, after 2 million views and retweets, is like, you know guys, this is CGI, right? The thing is, you can't tell. It's just not possible. So Smarty Pants says, oh, that's not him. Yeah, this is not supposed to be him. This is actually supposed to be Jack Stephen, not David Bowie. I never saw a difference here. Let me go ahead and play another clip.
Earlier, that I actually felt that part of me had died. I mean, I have to say that's how much an influence he is, I think, to me and to thousands and millions of people around the world. And strangely, I'm surprised. I sort of lived through John Lennon's death. Elvis.
Oh, John Lennon, death faker, came back as Steve Jobs. Let's not go too much further before addressing this. Now, okay, here we go. When Steve Jobs died, Wozniak came out and he said, when Steve died, he said, it's like losing John Lennon all over again. Let me play that. This is a very obvious one, and when you look at the symbolism, the storyline, Apple Music, Apple Computers, it gets to be pretty obvious that yes, John Lennon is a death faker and definitely came back as Steve Jobs. But now listen to Wozniak when he heard the news that Steve Jobs had died. It's the weirdest thing, because when someone dies, the last thing you would do, I would imagine, is compare it to somebody else who died, like instantly. But that's exactly what he does.
Nobody likes floppy.
This is again Steve Wozniak. We're talking about how he's tearfully remembering his friend Steve Jobs. They said tearfully in the title here, in case you notice there's no tears.
So where I was when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, when I heard that JFK had been shot.
Oh, JFK, another death faker. And Bowie, disguised as Jack Stephen, just mentioned Elvis, so there's another death faker.
Through John Lennon's death, Elvis's death.
See what I mean? They all exist in the same fictional universe.
I was so stunned because I have very dramatic memories of where I was when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, when I heard that JFK had been shot.
And by the way, when JFK was shot, Meatloaf was supposedly there, and he saw Kennedy's blood on the Ford Lincoln at Parkland Hospital. So again, backstagers, they're all part of the same script.
And I'll never get this memory out of my head, just where I was, just getting a phone call from a reporter. And they just said, have you heard the news? And I instantly knew what that meant. And it was just a total shock. Like, what do you say? It's like the world lost a John Lennon.
So the world lost a John Lennon. Okay, again, look at John Lennon and Steve Jobs. What is that? Sounds like a joke. Sounds like he's reciting something. But again, the death fakers, they refer to each other as legends. I've seen a lot of key words that they use. And the 27 Club, they're not always 27. There are often other hints. I'm not sure exactly what that number means. I mean, it may have something to do with Saturn Returns. I don't know. Alright, let us continue. We're talking about the new movie, The Man Who Fell to Earth, in the context of Bowie, David Bowman. Of course, David Bowman, we're talking about from Kubrick's work, and David Bowie. The resemblance here, or the similarity, I think, is in the bigger trajectory of their world stage characters. The thing about David Bowman merging with the Monolith, becoming the Star Child, that corresponds to Starman. And of course, the Starman was launched into space with a David Bowie song that plays along with it. And it's also an anagram for Mr. Satan, which may also relate to everything else here. Starman, David Bowie track. There's also a movie called Starman, answering a NASA message intended for aliens. A man tries to... Jeff Bridges. It's a Jeff Bridges movie. So many movies about alien contact, and this is like a replacement for, I think, Angels is the promise of salvation. They're, super high tech. They can cure all things. They can solve all things. I mean, the alien in The Man Who Fell to Earth forms this big corporation and becomes the wealthiest man. Look, Elon Musk's Tesla Roadster dubbed Starman. And now this one has the Bowie tie-in, which is essentially also therefore a Kubrick tie-in. Because again, the Bowie character, I think, is it definitely corresponds with the David Bowman and the Kubrick trajectory, and they even played Space Oddity during the Apollo 11, during the BBC presentation of it. Okay, so there's a mannequin in the Tesla Roadster, and on the dashboard it has "Don't Panic," which is a reference to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a movie obsessed with the number 42. Another 42 connection. This to me was a major disappointment. Just that it's such an obvious hoax. There's so many ways you can call this thing out. There's even an actual frame in the presentation where you can see that they're in a movie studio. Like, they kind of give it away. But I was so disappointed that no one had any kind of, I don't know, skepticism at all. It was like, take that, flat earthers. And I'm like, take what? It's a cartoon. The dark side of the earth is dark. Yet, in most ISS footage, the dark side is lit up like Christmas. I mean, there are hundreds of inconsistencies here. Plus the bubbles. If you watch the video, there are bubbles. I mean, part of this is shot in that desalinated pool where they do the ISS. That SOB says that's definitely him. Yes, it is. Steve Jobs definitely exited stage. Legends never die, says Lean Dion. Yep, they mostly fake it. The last album by Bowie is called Black Star. Yes, and of course, Lazarus was a self-epitaph. It was a rest in peace me. He knew. How did he know? And the Elvis connection is noteworthy. The Elvis birthday being consistent. Elvis and Bowie. You know, there's this channel, Jurassic Liars 26, and he's picked up on a lot of these various storylines that have to do with Elvis and the whole vax thing. And he's picked up some interesting things that are all connected through birth dates. Like, on Bill Gates' first birthday, Elvis Presley got a vax on TV live, you know, October 28th. But he sewed together all these different aspects to it, and it seems like that there is definitely a discernible script if you can recognize how they reveal who the characters are. And so the death dates and the birth dates are highly significant, which makes sense considering that it's all astrotheological. But the Starman correlates to the star child of David Bowman / David Bowie. Copaesthetic says Black Star is Pluto. Pluto is the darkest planet. Could very well be. It could be. I'll have to look into it. We live on a flat plane. You know, the solar system's flat. You know, whatever you think. If we're in a heliocentric system, it's flat, with the exception of Pluto, that goes, 17 degrees below the ecliptic plane, which makes it the ruler of the underworld. By the way, the Dawn Day 2 event, we were talking about the symbolism of the Burning Man, the Phoenix, Kanye West, burning on the anniversary of the Burning Man, which usually takes place in Black Rock City. These things were all, I think, very much connected. But anyway, this Tesla Roadster in space thing, I've been, you know, you look at the symbolism of David Bowie, David Bowman, and the Black Star, and then here you have this new movie, this time played by a different actor, but he brings out this black six-pointed star, well, a hexagram on stage. I think it all ties in pretty well, though. I'm not quite sure where it's all going. I have a few ideas, but you can't really separate, you know, any of these death fakers. They all live in the same fictional universe. There's no way you can believe that Musk and Bezos are in any way somehow competitors or against each other, because they're participating in the same ruse. Their special effects aren't in competition. You notice? It's not like Bezos is coming up with better special effects and making the rest of these guys look crazy, because they can do anything. They can literally do warp speed. I mean, anything you can do in computer animation, you can just present to the public. So they're somewhat constrained. They're on this staged together, obviously sharing the same quote technology or special effects. Ellen Crook says David Bowie is born Davy Jones. Same name as the frontman for the Monkees. Black Star is a reference to Saturn according to Judaic beliefs as infinite muse. See, I would more say it's Saturn. I've been thinking about this because you have the closest luminary, the brightest, the sun, and the furthest in this context, you would say the Saturn. And the idea in the myth of Saturn brings the darkness. Saturn is the dark, the sun is the light. You have this duality. You know, Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader is one way that they portray this. But the sun god is always dying. And the night wins for time, then he's reborn. But I think that Saturn and the sun might be the twin poles, the opposites, the black and the white, the light and the dark, positive, negative. It may just be that. It would make sense. But now the David Bowie thing, his death, his posthumous Broadway play where he's Lazarus and he rises from the dead, and then he shows up on the world stage. Yeah, this is all very consistent with these death fakers. They love to gloat about it. And he got away just in time. Before the cancel me crowd went after him, there's some interesting things in his background. The thing about Bowie that I find interesting, though, is he introduces a lot of the thelemic stuff, a lot of the Crowley stuff, definitely the androgynous stuff. That stuff was all consciously put into his music. So the space age was a big part of his music. It was he's this alien, he's introducing these thelemic concepts, but none of it's accidental, and that's why his music has been used with the space program. The very first music video in space was Chris Hadfield performing Space Oddity. And of course, we have to remember Space Odyssey has predictive programming for COVID and for the incoming space 9/11. Now, of course, Pluto, does it exist? Does it not exist? The whole point of it, I think, is that mainly they bring it up as one. The Pluto return thing, I think, is significant, returning to the point where it was in 1776. But I think that right now, the significance has to do with this Kraken thing. And Pluto is the underworld, Hades. He's the ruler of the dark side. Some of these characters somewhat overlap. Like Marilyn Manson, for example, in the context of his dispute with Evan Woods, mirrors Evan Woods and her confrontation with the Man in Black. And so both Manson and Ed Harris, as this Man in Black, portray these very Saturnian characters, controlling someone in their little Saturnian matrix of cycles, cycle of abuse, cycle of time control over the synths in the simulation. But at the same time, they are both very much like Hades, kidnapping and controlling Persephone. And that's very much emphasized in the documentary where Manson says to Evan Wood, "Don't fall," as the very first thing he says to her. Of course, "don't fall," obviously a joke or a reference to the idea that Persephone goes into the underworld at the autumn equinox for the fall and winter. Okay, let me go ahead and open up phones here. I believe I have a couple of voicemails as well. CERN 666, they're trying to open the gates of hell. Symbolism will be their downfall. It's a video from BitChute. I bet the Mandoozled are going crazy right now. If your Mandela effect is, I guess what would you call it, breaking out right now? If you're having a Mandela effect outbreak, it's likely because CERN is being activated right now. So call in if anything's happening. Yoga Pants Deplorable has joined us. Erica Bear says Rahu. Yeah, this is a possibility. Hey, let me play some voicemails and then we'll go back and catch up with recent headlines. Got a text message. Hey Tim, love the show. Keep up the great work. I'll buy an NFT soon. Yes, tonight, since I'm not working, after this I'm going to go restock inventory in the store, both digital and physical art. There's a lot of artwork shipping out, and you'll notice that generally within an hour or two after the live stream, I'll go through and I'll print out labels, and you get the tracking numbers, and you can figure out when things are arriving. I got a voicemail from Lynn last week, and she suggested that I join Rockfin for purposes of research and seeing what happens with this Eddie Bravo show. So I did join Rockfin, and I actually applied to see if they let me in. So I'm going to say it right. I'm going to call it Rockfin, unless they continue to blackball me, in which case it will go back to Rothkin. Okay, 833-311-1984. We've been talking about Jeff Bezos as Nimrod, Jeff Bezos as the man who fell to Earth, as a composite character combining Bowie's Man Who Fell to Earth with Dr. Evil. Yesterday I mentioned Aisha Curry being a deep-faked Miley Cyrus. If you haven't seen that, I just put a picture on the screen. The symbol of the Tower of Babel being connected to Bezos is very significant, of course, tying into America as Titanic. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim, it's Eric Britton. I called in last night. I was a new caller. Thought I'd give you another call tonight. How you doing?
Yeah, very good. Hey, did you catch the article, the newsletter, or the news about Bezos building a headquarters that looks like the Tower of Babylon?
Yes, and I think the title, that's very interesting. I love how you tie everything back to the, to either some sort of mythology, Greek mythology from the stars, or, something from a religious doctrine. It's very interesting, man. It's crazy how the patterns are always followed.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's not even a matter of opinion at this point. It's just an observation. And
yes, exactly. I mean, it's like I was explaining, like the whole thing about Persephone, that when it comes to the girl that went missing, the van lifer, I can't think of their name.
Gabby Petito. Yeah.
Yes. I was trying to explain because my wife got so mad. She understands that I've began to see everything like as a hoax, and she don't buy it 100% yet, but she's starting to see it. But she got flat mad at me about that one. She was like, "How can you say it isn't real?" And, it's just like, wow, you're falling in the trap. And then I was trying to explain to her what you were saying. I was like, it's following this pattern. So it's just a part of this time of year. So it's, and she wouldn't get it, but at least I planted the seed.
Well, a lot of people haven't or probably won't ever even confront the notion that their religions aren't based on facts. That these are stories, that these are interpretations. And so they think the news is completely objective. And so if you start off with that, you would never arrive at any of the conclusions that we've arrived at, which is fine. I'm not trying to convert. However, you can point to things like Jussie Smollett, and the media's immediate reaction was to embrace the story as real. And until it came out as fake, people treated it like it was real. So that right there shows you that if you accept the face value of their stories, you're likely to be duped. And how many times are we not privy to the fake news? Is it have we already seen all the hoaxes? Have they exposed it all? No, of course not. They bury these things.
It's like I've just now come around to no one cried, no one died on 9/11, and it's just because I've always had one of those gut feeling and minds that didn't believe what I was seeing on the news. I've been that way for a long time, but not to the point where I was seeing it correctly. Like when 9/11 happened, of course, my first gut reaction was, "Oh, it's an inside job. We did it," But I still thought people died. I still thought that it was real. That and then it just over time, it's just taken years for that programming to break down, and now I fully understand what You know,
That's a tough one. It's weird, but it's difficult to let go of the idea that they were actual victims when you emotionally responded and even grieved or whatever, which some people probably did.
Yeah.
And then I know people who they're like, oh no, that was obviously a hoax. That's a hoax, but that had to be real. And it's like, why? And the main point I make here is that the mainstream media does represent, I think, the new state church, and that's why they give us myths and stories.
Yeah, you know, it's like, to me, it's like almost, it's like you say, if you can't go somewhere and actually physically validate something, you know, that with some physical evidence, then it's okay to go ahead and allow it to possibly be a hoax, because, and it's like with news, now when it comes to like local news, like there's a news station here in this town, I live here in Arkansas, and it's like, I could go to down the road if they said a building burned down or something, and I could physically go see if that happened and go, okay, that was a real news story. They reported the truth as far as I know, from what I can see, you know. But when it comes to these worldwide news broadcasts, you know, when they're verbatim, brought to us with the same script on every news channel in every state in every country, you know, those it's just impossible. And you know, you can't, and when there's no way to actually physically go see if what they're telling us is true, and especially with stuff like the space program and, you know, different things, it's just ridiculous. You can't prove it. So
have you seen those montages where they show you how all the small local newsrooms across the country will read the same script?
Yes, like it'll be in the same. Oh yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
The thing is, we have, I think, we have made an error, a philosophical error, maybe a logical error, when we accepted the burden of proof for media claims, where I think it's right after Kennedy was shot, anybody who questions the news is now a, quote, conspiracy theorist, whereas they're the ones telling the story. They need to bring the evidence, and the public standard of evidence has been lowered so far that we're just collectively being lied to, and those of us who see through the lies still have to go along with the big ones. We have to go along with the mob. We have no choice. 2020 proved it.
And it's like, I was talking about this today with my wife. It's like, okay, you know, Kennedy, that whole thing happened before we were born. I DoorDash. I was a part-time job, and I was listening to something today while I was writing orders about Martin Luther King. And it's like these stories about these people that were assassinated and stuff in our past before we were born. I was like, their life stories and the whole thing about them getting killed and all that, I was like, it's just too perfect. Like it's a book, like it was written, you know, for us to enjoy as entertainment, but it just don't ring as real to me, you know, like it doesn't taste right. It doesn't pass the taste test with me.
And look, people assume things. They assume that JFK was shot and their grandparents saw it and their great-grandparents watched it. Well, no, it wasn't even on TV until Geraldo Rivera aired it like 12 years later.
See, and so why do our parents misremember? See, I told my wife, I was like, what if the illusion is so strong? I was like, this whole thing is, I was like, what if our parents are actually in on this? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if they are actually, you know, part of this whole thing? Like, it's crazy, man, but I mean, it just don't make sense the way that, like, the older people in my family and stuff will try to tell me that this is the way it happened. And it's right. They're misremembering. It's crazy.
It's funny. It really is. And misremembering is a good way of describing it, because I always talk about the Mandela effect conspiracy theory, because it shows that people don't know how your recollections can be somewhat malleable. We have to make a distinction between what you actually remember and when you're recalling someone else's account of something and just assimilating it. And a lot of people they take secondhand information without vetting it. But
you know, and I don't.
Yeah.
You know, I would have never found you more than likely if I hadn't jumped on the flat Earth wagon for a long time, and so I'm glad I did. But it was it's just sick to me how flat Earth, you know, has been. I mean, I realize now that I was duped by that, by many of the ones that people I used to listen to that I know are working with the system. You know what I'm saying? Like some of those guys, especially the ones with that AE map and all that. You know, I know that there's issues, and it's like I didn't see it at first, you know, and it's the flat Earth, and then this Mandela effect. You know, the way that they're acting, like especially attacking you over questioning it. It just, man, that's red flags, man. That's bad. You know, if they'd have kept their calm and been like, okay, you don't have to believe it, you know, and just went on with their way, you know, I'm more cool with casual people that don't overreact to things. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that tells me that they're not trying to hide something.
Well, we did some investigation on this channel. We met people, and it turns out that the first conference organizer, the main speaker, was known. He dated Jimmy Kimmel's sister, and at the final conference they had, the organizer invited Jimmy Kimmel's people in to sabotage it while pretending to not know that they were because they were ABC News. Like, I guess they disguised themselves as ABC News. He pretended not to know. Anyway, no, basically the people who looked into the topic were corralled by a lot of, I believe, MSM-connected plans for the purposes of making them stick with this idea that you're under a glass dome and this is biblical literalism. And I kind of think biblical literalism's a trap, just like media literalism is a trap. You're going to believe everything you read in the Bible literally. You might as well believe whatever you see on the TV literally. There's a problem there. There's a logical error.
Yeah, and that's the dupe. Yeah, so it's crazy. Like I mentioned last night, I grew up in a Jehovah's Witness family and very indoctrinated, very, very, studying the Bible and these literature magazines and stuff weekly. My whole childhood brought up that way, and I could always tell that they call it what they teach the truth, and I knew that it wasn't the truth. I was like, come on. And it took me. I had my whole family disowning me because I left that religion, and then years of deprogramming myself to realize that it was nonsense. I mean, because some of that stuff, man. I mean, it's got to be some government studied brainwashing techniques that they use with the literature with that organization, because it's hard to break free. Like you were talking about the military being culty. It's the same way with them. They know what they're doing, that they can get in your head so deeply.
I had a landlord that was... I had a landlady that was like a Jehovah's Witness, and right after a death in the family, she immediately came over, invited me to her place, and she said, you're not going to die. And she basically told me that death is a veil that I will walk through without dying, and those who did die, or who have just died, are just asleep. And I thought, so, I'm at the house where they have their Jehovah's Witness meetings, and I was being told about it, and I kind of just ghosted her after this. But I thought, what kind of person goes to you after you finish dealing with some situation and then try to recruit you? Because that's when I think when you're malleable, and I'm like, that's when you're vulnerable to being recruited.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's their game plan. That's how they do it.
It sounded good. I'm like, I don't want to die. It's kind of a good pitch.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, man. So, and there's one more thing that's kind of off topic. I apologize, but I kind of jumped on the Trump wagon there for a while, especially during 2020. It's like the first time really that I ever really paid much attention to a president as he spoke, because he was just on the news so much with everything that was going on with the COVID hoax and everything. So anyway, I'm watching this guy, and I got, for a little while there, I was like, hey, this man is actually, he's out there fighting the fight for the little guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really believed in him for a minute, and I wasn't like a QAnon or anything like that, but I was listening to their information, and it's like, wow, I got excited at times. I was like, I want this to be true. This is great, but I think it's just so obvious now that there's no way. He's just another actor playing.
Well, it's hard not to side with the idea, though, that you have a guy who made his money. Yeah. He made his money. Maybe it was legit, 100%, maybe not, but he's not a communist. And he's at least there for the American dream. Represents, hey, you can still happen. And he's kind of a middle finger to the establishment, the fascists who want to lock down and freeze our economies. Yeah. And then chanting for the wall, all this stuff. He's just kind of building up hype for the idea of America not being torn apart by, obvious fascist Democrats who operate under false pretenses. And when he said climate change is a hoax, I was like, okay, I can be on board with this at least in
I
this
never heard
direction.
you say that. That's good.
I think he called it
I didn't know he came out with that.
I think he called it a Chinese hoax. But the idea was just to even say that word, and then of course he started calling out fake news. But that's when I realized, okay, wait. When he says fake news, it means Democrat news. It doesn't mean psyops. So he doesn't quite take you out of the world stage.
No, and that's the thing. It's like I got caught up in him so bad that I was like, man, I really was starting to follow him, and it's like, and now I'm like feeling kind of heartbroken, disappointed, because I'm like, man, I know that he's just another. I know that he's not going to stop anything. He's not going to. He's not going to actually do the things that we want him to do if he's that hero. You know what I'm saying? Like, because he's still on that world stage and still a player in it, even if he is outing a lot of the things that we don't agree with. Like it was kind of like a heartbreak for me for a little while. It still is,
It's nice to think he's a rogue.
I hope he surprises me. Like, I kind of hope he surprises me.
It'd be nice if he's a rogue. And that he's just sending out dog whistles, little hints like, yes, I'm on your side. He's a wink, a 17. And so it's a very good pitch. The fact is, though, the QAnon story can't be separated from the bigger psyops like 9/11. I think it has the same authors. So I'm not quite sure what it all means, where it's headed necessarily. But, I don't think the guy's an autonomous actor going against a deep state. I think that he's part of the story. And we'll see, though.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how it plays out, man.
All right, appreciate the
call.
call.
Man, I appreciate you letting me call in, buddy. You take care.
Awesome. Call back anytime. All right. New caller there. Yeah, the Trump pitch is a very strong pitch. It's better than how dare you. It's better than shut down the economy. It's better than the New World Order's church being fully implemented, as this new utopia. One size fits all. Crack pipe in every pocket. But no, it's mostly, I think, an illusion. A Space Force would almost guarantee that. I mean, is there a chance that he's some kind of secret savior working for the Kennedys who are actually the bloodline of Christ? Like 1 in 1,000 maybe. But it's diminishing. And I also think you can't separate the QAnon thing from the obvious implementation of a cult ideology, church universal triumphant, that General Flynn has pretty much brought all of his people into his QAnon inner circle. They're all part of it. They're all praying to the angels of the 7 rays or something. Trumper thinks Princess Diana and Jackie O are alive and helping to rule the world, and knows gematria. So we've played some
first of all, y'all
clips. I'll play a short clip again here. This is true. They do believe this. And this does tie in fact, to the Church Universal Triumphant, who have this belief in ascended masters, people who die, or fake die, but remain accessible to you if you can channel them in order to help humanity overcome the darkness and the workers of darkness. So the great white brotherhood that you invoke. Well, here you have the white hats fighting the deep state, and your death fakers like Jackie O and Princess Diana as the ascended masters.
Y'all are so cute. I love the outfits. I would like detailed explanations on every single shirt. Ready, set, go.
Right? So, living, and we know living, ruling the world, and you don't take down evil by being quiet or silent, right? So people need to understand who they are. Do they look like them today? No.
You think Princess Diana is still alive?
Absolutely, 100%. Do you?
So the story is Princess Diana is going to expose the corruption of royalty. Michael Jackson's going to expose the corruption in the music industry. JFK Jr. will expose political corruption. And there are many, many of these death fakers who are going to come back. Q is actually a LARP portrayed by Marcus Goldfinch, an actor who works as George News. He works at the White House. He works with Trump closely. He's a friend of the Trumps. He knows Ivanka Trump and Donald Trump Jr. personally. His name is Marcus Goldfinch. The media hasn't figured it out yet, but when they do, it's going to be a disaster for the Trumps.
I didn't, but maybe you have something that you know that I don't know.
Well, you know God speaks to us, right? There's ways that we can figure these things out. So if people start learning ABC 1, 2, 3, which Michael Jackson talked about how many years ago, right? And he sang about. So when people start understanding gematria, they start understanding the numbers, A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. They understand how words work, sentence.
There you have it. Gematria, the practice of assigning a numerical value to a name, word, or phrase according to an alphanumerical cipher. So a lot of this to me is more or less an exercise in confirmation bias. There are patterns. Now, Princess Diana, is she alive? Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's David Furnish, married to Elton John. Jackie O, is she alive? 120 maybe? I don't know. Now, the shirt that she put on has Melania Trump, Jackie O, and Princess Diana, and it says Divine Feminine. So they are worshipping. This is idol worship. What else can you call this? JFK Jr. is their Christ. And I've also pointed out recently that Holywood is an unproduced script by Marilyn Manson. And Holywood is about JFK as the second coming. And they shot him. So JFK Jr. is the new hope. And they call him in the song the President White, who's going to unite the world. The song's called Coma White. But yeah, the song itself, Holywood, is about JFK dying as the second coming and his son being the third savior coming back. And the release of the video was actually delayed because it happened around the time, it was released around the time that JFK Jr. crashed. JFK Jr. crashed on 7/16, which is the anniversary date of, well, Eyes Wide Shut came out on that day, but also Apollo 11 launched from Kennedy Space Center. The Kennedy death dates are very much connected with a lot of the Kubrick works. It's a very consistent theme. So tonight we've been talking about Dr. Evil erecting a Tower of Babel in Virginia. Bezos as a modern-day Nimrod, Dr. Evil, the man who fell to Earth. Composite character like all the rest. Here's an image of the space plane from Space Odyssey arriving on the twin-cylindered space station, very reminiscent of the plane going into the Twin Towers. Same director. Again, the approval that he needed, I guess that's gone through, so there's going to be a helix-shaped headquarters approved out there in Virginia. Jeff Bezos is literally building a Tower of Babel. And again, this is just sort of an affront to God, is the idea. Nimrod decides to build a tower. It offends God because he's basically going into an area where he's been. It's not his home. It's not his head. He's not supposed to go up. He's supposed to remain down here on the face of the earth, and he goes and he invades God's territory up there and gets his tower knocked down. Just as Bezos continues to build his wealth, aims to become a trillionaire despite the globe's obvious wrath. The globe doesn't think it can sustain any billionaires. So what's it going to do when it sees trillionaires? And the first people who get into mining asteroids will be trillionaires. Jordan says he believes they're all alive, but not due to Q info. Yeah, same here. Many of these are likely legitimate death fakers and hoaxes. I don't know if the Q story is true, if they're actually going to bring them all back. I mean, there's so much mis and disinformation in here. Another one is there's a character named Negative48 who brought a lot of the JFK returns mythology into the group, and some people think that this is actually JFK Jr. wearing a mask. And, you know, his voice did convince people that this was him before he ever showed his face. So this could be the face of the third coming of Jesus. All right, let's see. Phones are still open, 833-311-1984. Let me go through the rest of the notes that I took. Mostly we were discussing the composite character known as Pope Bezos. Tom Cruise is trying to play Doctor Strange. I touched on this earlier, and this is very significant. Doctor Strange is essentially Jack Parsons. Jack Parsons had his high priestess, Marjorie Cameron, also the Scarlet Woman. So for Doctor Strange to be in a movie with a character known as Scarlet Witch, not a coincidence. That's a Marjorie Cameron reference. The greater significance, of course, here, I would say, is that if Tom Cruise wants to be Doctor Strange, he's identifying himself more or less with Jack Parsons, which plays into this bigger space drama. Jack Parsons, by the way, blew up at the age of 37 in his laboratory, another fiery death associated with this space program. Nimrod is a biblical figure mentioned in Genesis and Chronicles, the great-grandson of Noah. So this is the character. And from WorldNet Daily, I came across this article and it gave me this ad. Are the ancient stories in the Bible actually a template for what happens in the news today? And I can say unequivocally yes. But I don't think it's God speaking to us. And the advertised book there leaps to that conclusion. That, yeah, you can find God speaking to us in all these pop songs. No, I'm sorry. You're not looking at the God speaking to you. You're looking at whoever's writing this stuff. To immediately think that some advanced technology is from the gods is not very advanced thinking, and it's very fallacious. You would call it the God of the gaps explanation. I can't explain it, therefore a higher power. When the higher power has not yet been established. Again, wanted to bring this up. When Bruce, very similar to Bruce Wayne, set himself on fire in DC yesterday, and he's dead now. It was a climate change protest. Here's Joaquin Phoenix burning like a phoenix after real-life protests for climate change. The Burning Man that burned himself in DC was 33. This was in 2019. 33 years prior, another Burning Man did the same thing in the same area. Right above the Joker's hand, like a ball that he's tossed up, it's the DC logo. So the Burning Man Phoenix DC is the story here in this picture. So for this guy with a name like Win Bruce to go to DC and set himself on fire for climate change is beyond coincidence. This is, again, a ritual. And so I'm kind of suggesting here that the burners, the chaos agents, the ones who bring about the destruction, the ones who were engaging in the rioting after the Joker movie, were from the left. So this time, following the Batman movie, I think the scripting is pretty clear that we're going to expect more right-wing style terrorists, more Riddlers out there. And again, the subway shooting, the entire thing was scripted to go along with the new Batman movie to help convince the public that yes, we are actually looking at a new threat. Now here's the article. A Colorado man lit himself on fire in DC in front of the Supreme Court building. His name, Win Bruce of Boulder. Last year in Boulder, we had that King Soopers shooting on 3/22, a super day for a psyop. Thrustazar says Doctor Strange is tall. Is that why Tom Cruise didn't get the gig? They could CGI it, couldn't they? That would be a deal breaker. Just the fact that he's attaching himself to that character. Mike Tyson punching the guy on the plane, fake news. A witness there said that those injuries wouldn't have been from Tyson's fist, that he wasn't punched hard enough. So looking at Will Smith and Mike Tyson and these headlines, I think all attention is pretty much good for your ratings. I'm pretty sure that's the intention here. It's a PR stunt. I'm trying to come up with one of my own. Not quite sure what yet, but it seems like a good strategy. The American people don't believe anything until they see it on television. Richard Nixon. Then you have William Casey. We'll know our disinformation program is a complete success when everything the American public believes is false. Yep, I would say mission accomplished. David Bowie, Death Faker, Lazarus reference in the new Man Who Fell to Earth. Not coincidental. That black stone, black rock symbol, the hexagon, worth looking into. I'm going to watch it, so I'll do a review on the new Man Who Fell to Earth. I'm glad it's a series and that they're not trying to remake the movie that generally doesn't work well. Okay, let's see here. Hacked Vote says, I love how both groups think that JFK Jr., Michael Jackson, and Elvis are working behind the scenes to save the world. At the same time, they believe the above people have time to wear masks and pretend to be Trump at a rally or musicians for the Stones. Yes, that's true. The Rolling Stones concert out in Dallas, I believe the QAnoners were convinced the Rolling Stones were Michael Jackson, JFK, and Elvis, and someone else in disguise. I think Keith Richards. They said Keith Richards was actually JFK Jr. No, JFK. 106-year-old rock star, rocking it out as a Rolling Stone. Here's a link to a ritual you may have missed. On the 1-year anniversary of September 11th, 2001, there was an All-Seeing Eye of Horus ritual with a bunch of people marching around it like zombies. Some kind of CERN ritual. And by the way, if you watch that Donde 2 event that happened on the day of Pluto return, it looks like a CERN ritual.
Being down here now, as different as it looks, I still have those visuals, those images in my mind, in my head.
We're on, as a nation, officially now.
The suicide bombers, it happens in Israel on a daily basis. Those are the things we have to...
I'm just watching some strange ritual, not unlike some of the strange stuff we watched in 2020, or these Olympics that open up with these ceremonies that seem to forecast the future. Like the London 2012 Olympics, you have all kinds of foreshadowing for 2020. Here's a tweet from the 20th, showing you some examples of bad hopium. The QAnoners are constantly falling for stuff like this. According to Search for Truth, and this started 4 days ago, today the mass media has been ordered to begin 10 days of disclosure containing real news happenings, no longer called the 10 Days of Darkness, or they lose their broadcasting licenses. So they're still waiting for this emergency broadcast that will signify the end of the deep state. They said that Trump hints was a sign from God. The trumpets would be blown and the world would look, and the bad guys would be routed. Anyway, this was 4 days ago. So we're 6 days in, no, 4 days in, there's 6 more days of darkness, and they haven't done this yet. But you'll notice these tweets are very popular. False hope sells. And when they realize it's not going to come true, they come for another dose of false hope. It's a very common thing. It's common with religions. Sometimes they're hoping for the end of the world. I call it doom hoping. And the QAnon thing is very much doom hopery. They want the world to end so that they can call it out and say, I told you so. They want Dark MAGA to come out and lay waste to their enemies. They're hoping for 10 days of darkness, which represents 10 days of watching the bad guys being subject to executions. So I fail to see the bright side in all of that. Oh, by the way, one more thing about Bezos I want to point out. Jeff Bezos is kind of suggested, I believe, in the character on The Man Who Fell to Earth, and he's holding that black box shaped like a hexagram. Well, anyway, I think this might relate to the West Texas clock. He has a clock that he put inside of a mountain. Bezos built a giant 10,000-year clock inside of a mountain in West Texas. It's 500 feet tall. Now, this clock, I think, is another way of referencing their god of time. Kronos, Saturn, same deity, also represented by the black cube or the hexagram. So you see the Man Who Fell to Earth holding a black rock hexagram, very consistent with this Saturnian symbolism and this cult. And what's more, Bezos paid $42 million for this clock. This number is used a lot with Elon Musk, and again, the Man Who Fell to Earth, Starman, Elvis. A lot of 42s are connected to all of these things, and it all relates to the same central deity, this Lord of Time and Cycles, Saturn, Kronos, Death. So a 10,000-year clock that he paid $42 million for, yep, it's just a ritual prop. Just pointing that out. Anyway, thanks everyone for joining. I will be putting the replays and the archives up tonight, so if you're missing any archives, just go search Infinite Plane Radio on any podcast platform. Amazon Music is one. There's also Audible. Spotify is now carrying video. So pretty soon I'm going to start putting videos into Spotify. So it's another place to catch us as well. Anyway, this is Chief Crow and the Flat Earth Worms. This is AUTOHOAX or GTFO. And we will likely be back early tomorrow morning, East Coast time.
Så kompetent tänkande maskin utan något hopp om en framtid. Alltid positivt inställd och produktiv i fel tillfällen. Fel val vad jag väljer, säger fel saker vad jag säger. Så jag håller käften istället för att yttra mig. Men om det är någonting som jag verkligen vill ha sagt så kan ingen tysta mig. Och vad du tycker om mig kan du hålla för dig själv. Och vad jag tycker om dig kommer jag att hålla för mig själv. Det finns många vägar i livet, såväl det du anser vara rätt, såväl det du anser vara rätt. Alla får vi byggklossar till att bygga upp vår egna värld. Alla får vi byggklossar till att bygga upp vår egna Sverige. Vi konstruerar denna byggnad, ger oss karaktär. Jag är så glad att jag hamnat där jag är. Alla får vi byggklossar till att bygga upp vår egna värld. Alla får vi byggklossar till att bygga upp vår egna Sverige. Så hur vi konstruerar denna byggnad ger oss karaktär. Jag är så glad att jag hamnat där jag är. Så det är varmt välkommen till våra strid. Det är varmt välkommen till våran inre frid. Det är varmt välkommen till våra liv. Varmt välkommen till lämplighet. Så det är varmt välkommen till våran strid. Varmt välkommen till våran inre frid. Det är varmt välkommen till våra liv. Välkommen till lämplighet. Så det är varmt välkommen till våran strid. Varmt välkommen till våran inre frid. Varmt välkommen till våra liv. Varmt välkommen till lämplighet. Så det är varmt välkommen till våran strid. Varmt välkommen till våran inre frid. Varmt välkommen till våra liv. Varmt välkommen till lämplighet. Varmt välkommen. Hej då.
Sågtandade plågoandar vandrar vilset över vetefält. 100 år av kulturell svält, industrialismens kölvatten. I den småländska natten bor en sorgsen melodi. En melankoli som sprider sig som ogräs i rabatten. Som insjöns bruna vatten är sinnet dunkelt och otäckt. Ljuset släckt i alla stugorna längs den skrynkliga landsvägen som de en gång anlade. Klädda i kostymbyxor och hängslen. Med en hacka och en spade. Jag känner den så förskräcklig. Jag känner den vemodig. Jag känner surrealismen. Jag känner den medelålders. Jag känner den så förskräcklig. Jag känner den vemodig. Jag känner surrealismen. Jag lyssnar på Lady Sings the Blues. Elvisföreningen. Space Collective. Rest in peace.
Psychopipe står för musik
dags att öppna ögonen. Jag är inte vaken, än det är snart dags att öppna ögonen. Jag är inte vaken, än det är snart dags att öppna ögonen.
Allt bara snurrar, mina ögonlock känns tunga. Mina vanor är inte sunda och allt går åt helvete. Vad var det som hände? Jag vet inte vad jag känner, men det är fan inte lugn och ro. Jag vet inte vad jag ska tro, djävulen har mig i sina klor och tänker inte släppa taget. Jag vet inte vad som händer överhuvudtaget. Jag har inte svaret och jag tänker inte leta efter det just nu. Jag låter allt bara vara och försöker leva tills allt klarnar. Men det kommer ta ett jävla bra tag innan allt känns bra igen, innan allt tar fart igen. Och jag har testat varenda scenario om och om igen. Det händer ingenting, ingenting stämmer. Men jag använder inte heller hela min kapacitet just nu. Jag sparar lite kraft, alla behöver vi en rast. Då och då. Det är dags att vakna upp. Det är dags att vakna upp. Det är dags att vakna upp. Det är dags att vakna upp.
Det är snart dags att vakna upp från det djupa slumrandet. Försummandet av våran arbetskraft har pågått alldeles för länge. Vi har alla blivit tagna på sängen. Men det de inte har räknat med är att bonden kan bli hängd av drängen. För vad är egentligen poängen att vara många om man inte kan stånga lite då och då och uppnå målen som vi har satt upp? Istället för att bara titta på anslagstavlan utan att ens göra ett praktiskt försök att nå de målen vi har där. Det finns svar när vi verkligen vågar ifrågasätta oss själva och vår roll i vårt eget slaveri. Sanningen finns där inuti och där ute kan vi göra skillnad om vi verkligen vill. Jag är inte vaken, än det är snart dags att öppna ögonen. Jag är inte vaken, än det är snart dags att öppna ögonen. Jag är inte vaken, än det är snart dags att öppna ögonen. Jag är inte vaken, än det är snart dags att öppna ögonen. Jag är inte vaken, än det är snart dags att öppna ögonen. Jag är inte vaken, än det är snart dags att öppna ögonen. Jag är inte vaken, än det är snart dags att öppna ögonen.
Fram till rätt ställe i min tankeverksamhet som är rörig och kaosartad och utan struktur och utan en röd tråd. En svår komplex maskin som saknar komponenter som en vanlig människa har. Men den robusta stenåldersmässiga maskinen är kvar utan några svar på något av intresse. Och resten av mig är inget att ha. Fortsätter det samma spår, är inget att ha. Fortsätter det samma spår, är inget att ha. Fortsätter det samma spår, att ha. Och med varje år som går så blir jag nog mer och mer invecklad och komplicerad. Jag har slutat existera. Nu finns jag bara ett tomrum där ingenting händer. Ingenting händer. Jag tänker inte längre. Jag tänker inte längre än jag måste. Och jag måste tänka längre än vad jag tänker egentligen. Och ett fragment av en tanke lämnar mig för att skapa nya tankegångar och nya meningar med större trovärdighet när allt har sammanslagit i mitt huvud och inte gjort någon större nytta. Ombytta roller där min analoga själ står i centrum. Ett väntrum för mina tankar att utvecklas till något storartat. Ett väntrum för mina tankar att utvecklas till något storartat. Ett väntrum för mina tankar att utvecklas till något storartat. Ett väntrum för mina tankar att utvecklas till något storartat. Ett väntrum för mina tankar att utvecklas till något storartat. Jag har skapat ett monster. then you die. Shit happens and 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 then you die. I will never see the next day if I take all that I've been given for granted. But I'm not waiting for the next day to come and answer my situation by just improvising and see where I land in the end. Pretending that everything is great and create an illusion that I'm a strong person with no problems. But here I stand with a lot of problems, not even trying to solve them. Nothing is what it is and I just don't care about it at the moment. But I'll probably end up fucked up eventually and tired physically. Connecting situations with emotions to get in touch with myself. And all the small things in life are the things that I should take care of and cherish. We're here for such a short time. Anything can happen at any given moment, and it certainly does, always with the wrong timing. Blinding me for a short moment so my mistakes can't even get more clearer. And I feel that I'll someday lose myself in this blur of existence and just stop to live, stop to breathe, and then wake up from this nightmare with sweaty palms and forehead. Think about what just happened and just move along from there, because I will never stop as long as my heart beats. There will be more medicines to cure this disease called life. Fighting till the last breath, till there's nothing left of me. Leaving the situation slowly as days and nights pass, as nothing makes sense anymore, because shit happens and then you die. Take nothing for granted. Shit happens and then you die. Take nothing for granted. Shit happens and then you die. Take nothing for granted. Take nothing for granted. Take nothing for granted. Shit happens and then you die. Take nothing for granted. Shit happens and then you die. Take nothing for granted. Shit happens and then you die. Take nothing for granted. Take nothing for granted. Take nothing for granted. Shit happens and then you die. And I will never go back to that state of mind. Shit happens and then you die. And I will never go back to that state of mind. Shit happens and then you die. And I'll never go back to that state of mind. And I'll never go back to that state of mind. And I'll never go back to that state of mind. Because shit happens and then you die. Because shit happens and then you die.
Jag skapade en sjö där mitt blod minns liv. Då kom sommartorkan och sjön dustade bort. Det skinnet bara sågspån och ögon som aldrig mötte ljuset. Det finns inga hjältar här och bussen är alltid försenad. Vi stiger ner i katakomberna med lyktor i händerna. Vi ska aldrig mer se stjärnorna, men vi räds inte mörkret. Vi stiger ner i katakomberna med lyktor i händerna. Vi ska aldrig mer se stjärnorna, men vi räds inte mörkret. Vi stiger ner i katakomberna med lyktor i händerna. Vi ska aldrig mer se stjärnorna, men vi räds inte mörkret. Vi stiger ner i katakomberna med lyktor i händerna. Vi ska aldrig mer se stjärnorna, men vi räds inte mörkret.
Är det här min verklighet? Är det här min dröm? Eller ett uppvaknande ögonblick där jag får för lite sömn? Är det här min verklighet? Eller är det en dröm? Eller ett uppvaknande ögonblick där jag får för lite sömn? Är det här min verklighet? Eller är det en dröm? Eller ett uppvaknande ögonblick där jag får för lite sömn? Är det här min verklighet? Eller är det en dröm? Eller ett uppvaknande ögonblick där jag får för lite sömn.
Alle Menschen sterben, weil sie keine Lust mehr haben nach der Miete. Joritenhagel verwesen die schäbigen Mietnomaden. Die wenigen, die übrig blieben, verkriechen sich unter die Erdoberfläche. In dieser Zeit sind gute Gedanken die wertvolle Schätze. Sie sterben an Grenze, der schönste Traum, den ich jemals hatte.
Som huvudlösa ryttare i en sömnig urholkning. Som urbefolkning i regnskogar där maskiner plogar upp jorden och avverkar stammar. Reser dammar och bygger vägar som tonar i en myrstack. Det kryper under huden som skadedjur under barken. Men jag sådde mitt frö i den bördiga marken. Där starka rötter står emot elementets slöa ägg. Mitt skägg är av mossa. Mina armar är stockar som lockar små fåglar att bygga små bo. Regn och solsken får grönskan att gro med oväntad styrka.
Detta drömliknande tillstånd borde förevigas och multipliceras i en repeterande sekvens där jag nästan är vaken. Uppvaknandet är så påtagligt, huvudvärken har avtagit. Här står jag helt utblottad utan några som helst känslor kvar i min kropp. Jag har satt stopp för idioti. Jag står inte längre bredvid utan deltar på den nivå där ingenting känns svårt. Där ingenting känns omöjligt. Jag löjligt mycket energikrypande så det som är kvar av mig. Men om du ställer några frågor så får du inget svar av mig. Jag har ingenting att säga dig. Ingenting att säga dig. Ingenting. Är det här min verklighet? Eller är det en dröm? Eller ett uppvaknande ögonblick där jag får för lite sömn?
Ist das die Wirklichkeit? Ist das mein Traum? Oder nur ein Schreckmoment, der mich nicht schlafen lässt?
Är det här min verklighet? Eller är det en dröm? Eller ett uppvaknande ögonblick där jag får för lite sömn?
Ist das die Wirklichkeit? Ist das mein Traum? Oder nur ein Schreckmoment, der mich nicht schlafen lässt?
Är det här min verklighet? Eller är det en dröm? Eller ett uppvaknande ögonblick där jag får för lite sömn?
Ist das die Wirklichkeit? Ist das mein Traum? Oder nur ein Schreckmoment, der mich nicht schlafen lässt?
Är det här min verklighet? Eller är det en dröm? Eller ett uppvaknande ögonblick där jag får för lite sömn? Där jag får för lite sömn. Där jag får för lite sömn. Är det här min verklighet? Eller är det en dröm? Eller ett uppvaknande ögonblick där jag får för lite sömn? Där jag får för lite sömn. Alright. finns ingenting som kan stoppa mig. Det finns ingenting. Jag bara flyter fram som om livet var en ljudvåg. Jag är rätt komplicerad, jag är rätt svår att förstå. Rätt svår att nå. Jag är på den nivå där allt jag säger har en betydelse. Jag söker förnyelse och ett nytt sätt att tänka. Invänta framtidens nyckfulla händelser med förväntan. Väntar oftast alldeles för länge på min tid. Och jag tror att min tid aldrig kommer inträffa. Men jag fortsätter vänta samtidigt som jag hämtar inspiration från de sjukaste källorna. Där de konstigaste berättelserna gör sig hörda i sin sublima framtoning. Jag söker försoning med mig själv. Väljer den svåraste banan framåt för att utmana mig själv. Men utmaningen är oftast för överväldigande. Jag stod stilla när tiden stannade. Jag famlade ett tag, men det finns ingenting som kan stoppa mig. 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 Det finns ingenting. Snälla sluta tänk för en sekund. Ta det till den plats inom dig som gör dig lugn. Och bara sjung ut dina känslor. Och bara sjung ut dina känslor. Snälla sluta tänk för en sekund. Ta dig till den plats inom dig som gör dig lugn. Och bara sjung ut dina känslor. Och bara sjung ut dina känslor. Snälla sluta tänk för en sekund. Ta dig till den plats inom dig som gör dig lugn. Och bara sjung ut dina känslor. Och bara sjung ut dina känslor. Allt det analoga som en människa behöver har försvunnit och ersatts av en värld där allt är fiktivt. Och inga av dessa nymoderniteter känns kompatibelt med mitt liv. Så håll ditt skit för dig själv, för det är inget jag behöver. Detta är det som blir över. Det är ingen som vill ha det hur som helst. Hur som helst kommer ditt sätt att leva döda dig sakta men säkert. Och detta vet jag säkert, för ingenting du gör är mänskligt eller givande. Bara strider mot allt som är levande och själsbejakande. Och kapitalisera på det och exakt allting. Versen har det i sina klor och du gillar det konstigt nog. Behöver ingen kreativ process utan bara gör saker som du blivit tillsagd att göra. Planerna på din framtid ser ljus ut för en kort tid. Men när den tiden är över kommer du undra vad som precis hände. Du blev använd som den blick i ett spel som ingen vill vara en del av. Med dina yttre krav fick dig att vända dig mot alla vettiga principer som finns. Och nu står du helt ensam. Nu står du helt ensam. Och nu står du helt ensam. Du kommer alltid stå där helt ensam. Helt ensam. Och nu står du där helt ensam. Och nu står du där helt ensam. Du kommer alltid stå där helt ensam. För nu står du där helt ensam. Ensam och övergiven. För nu står du där helt ensam. Du är ensam och övergiven. För nu står du där helt ensam. Nu står du där helt ensam. Nu står du där helt ensam. Ensam och övergiven. För nu står du där helt ensam.
We are not primitivists. Primitivists reject technology. We reject the inappropriate use of technology.
Det är något fel i min mekanik. Det är något som inte fungerar. Kugghjulen rör sig inte som de ska. Och det ena som ska leda till det andra leder ingen vart. Allt kommer stanna tvärt. Inget känns naturligt, utan påtagligt påtvingat. Jag finns utan att finnas till. Jag gör saker jag inte vill. Tills allt kommer stå still. Mina egna rörelser avtar sakta. Och sätter mig ur balans. Balanserandes mellan verklighet och dröm. Med mardrömmar som äter upp mig från insidan ut. Jag inväntar mitt slut. Där jag fortfarande existerar, men inte fungerar på något sätt. Jag bara finns till, men jag reagerar inte på något. Jag inväntar inte rätt tillfälle. Jag tar inte tillfället i akt. Mekaniken är inte intakt. Det känns bara som allt har stagnerat. Och jag kan inte röra mig som jag vill längre. Inte alls. Fan. Kugghjulen går inte runt. Och alla bara pratar en jävla massa strunt. Jag tror att jag behöver uppdatera mina drivrutiner och se över mitt intrikata filsystem. Kugghjulen går inte runt. Och alla bara pratar en jävla massa strunt. Jag tror att jag behöver uppdatera mina drivrutiner och se över mitt intrikata filsystem. Kugghjulen går inte runt. Och alla bara pratar en jävla massa strunt. Jag tror att jag behöver uppdatera mina drivrutiner och se över mitt intrikata filsystem.
Hiphopens åsnan ior, smutsiga beat som stior. Brödrap, inte boom-bap. Domarna håller upp 10. Grattis, du vann pokalen. Seger i alla kvalen. Trummor som låter brapp-brapp. Finstämt som Allan i dalen. Kalmar-regionen. ECR-plutonen. Mörlunda till Mönsterås. Hertigarna på tronen. Alla vägar bär till Rom. Utom E22an. Även om tanken är halvtom, kommer man fram till Småland. By way of Sollentuna. 8-2 Ulsebeus HLG Psychopath.
Läker Troy 8-2 sådär ja. Det finns någonting inom mig. 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 Det finns någonting inom mig som säger att jag aldrig kommer kunna slappna av. Det kommer alltid finnas frågor och hinder som försöker stoppa min frammarsch. Jag har alltid haft mer energi än andra och därför kallats annorlunda. Så fortsätt blunda för det som kommer hända. Det gör inte jag. Jag tänker på ett annat sätt än vanliga normala människor. Jag är inte som alla andra vanliga normala människor. Jag försöker se på allt med en mänsklig syn så att vi alla kan leva tillsammans. Respektera varandra i det långa loppet och därmed värna om varandra. Jag har förståelse för alla olikheter och likheter vi har. Men det är oftast inte du. Så fortsätt ljuga om hur din verklighet verkligen är. Så får vi se var du egentligen hamnar. När du väl landar tungt så kommer du fatta vad du egentligen gjort. Du har bara levt i en fantasi där du trott att allt är guld och gröna skogar. Min kritik är befogad, så jag kommer fortsätta vara noggrann och aldrig vela runt i någon fantasi. Jag kommer aldrig bara stå bredvid och se på när allt fallerar. Jag kommer agera till den gräns det går. Jag vill inte ha det du vill ha. Jag vill inte vara det du är. Men jag förstår dig och ditt sätt att tänka. Men du förstår inte mig. Jag vill inte ha det du vill ha. Jag vill inte vara det du är. Men jag förstår dig och ditt sätt att tänka. Men du förstår inte mig. 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 Vi är så långt ifrån varandra men ändå så jävla nära. Vi är så långt ifrån varandra men ändå så jävla nära. Vi är så långt ifrån varandra men ändå så jävla nära. Vi är så långt ifrån varandra men ändå så jävla nära. Jag vill inte ha det du vill ha, jag vill inte vara det du är. Men jag förstår dig och ditt sätt att tänka. Men du förstår inte mig, men du förstår inte mig, men du förstår inte mig, men du förstår inte mig. För samhället har segregerat oss, sett till att vi ska vara så olika som det går. Så att mig och dig är fakta, folk tror sig veta vad vi är. Men har egentligen ingen som helst aning. Jag bara existerar i dina ögon utan någon som helst funktion. Och våran kommunikation fungerar inte, för annars hade allt varit okej. Hade vi kunnat samarbeta för ett bättre samhälle så hade nog allt varit lite bättre. Det hade nog varit lättare för oss alla. Det är väl ändå inte meningen att det ska vara så här. Det är väl ändå inte meningen att det ska vara så här. Det är väl ändå inte meningen att det ska vara så här. Det är väl ändå inte meningen att det ska vara så här. Det är väl ändå inte meningen att det ska vara så här. Det är väl ändå inte meningen att det ska vara så här. Det är väl ändå inte meningen att det ska vara så här. Det är väl ändå inte meningen att det ska vara så här. Ja. Hybriderna. Det kommer inte fram någon jävla signal. Det kommer inte fram någon jävla signal. Det är jävligt konstigt i detta digitala samhälle. Det är jävligt konstigt i detta digitala samhälle. Det kommer inte fram någon jävla signal. Och det är jävligt konstigt i detta digitala samhälle. Signalen kommer inte fram till mina receptorer. Den når inte fram till min hjärnbark. Jag kan inte riktigt uppfatta vad som händer. Det finns ingen kommunikation. Det finns ingen variation i informationen som till slut kommer fram. Men inget står ut som annorlunda. Och allt känns bara tråkigt och ganska ointressant. Helt jävla irrelevant för någon som jag. För utan giltig fakta så får jag inga svar på vad som egentligen sker. Jag vill inte vara med mer. Detta velande måste få ett slut. Allt måste få ett slut. De vet varken ut eller in. De fattar ingenting. Detta signalstopp gör så att allt står still. En ofrivillig stagnation som inte vill försvinna. Jag hindras i den naturliga utvecklingen. Jag känner mig inte tillräcklig än. Påbyggnad behövs. Men jag störs av allt omkring mig. Men inget kan stoppa mig. Ingen signal. Inget finns kvar av det vi byggt. Inget känns tryggt. Ingen signal. Inget finns kvar av det vi byggt. Inget känns tryggt. Ingen signal. Inget finns kvar av det vi byggt. Inget känns tryggt. Ingen signal. Inget finns kvar av det vi byggt. Inget känns tryggt. Signal. Det kommer inte fram någon jävla signal. Det är jävligt konstigt i detta digitala samhälle. Det kommer inte fram någon jävla signal. Och det är jävligt konstigt i detta digitala samhälle. Signalen kommer inte fram till mina receptorer. Den når inte fram till min hjärnbark. Jag kan inte riktigt uppfatta vad som händer. Det finns ingen kommunikation. Det finns ingen variation i informationen som till slut kommer fram. vardag. Och allt känns bara tråkigt och ganska ointressant. Helt jävla irrelevant för någon som jag. För utan giltig fakta så får jag inga svar på vad som egentligen sker. Jag vill inte vara med mer. Detta velande måste få ett slut. Allt måste få ett slut. De vet varken ut eller in. De fattar ingenting. Detta signalstopp gör så att allt står still. En ofrivillig stagnation som inte vill försvinna. Jag hindras i den naturliga utvecklingen. Jag känner mig inte tillräcklig än. Påbyggnad behövs. Men jag störs av allt omkring mig. Men inget kan stoppa mig. Ingen signal. Inget finns kvar av det vi byggt. Inget känns tryggt. Ingen signal. Inget finns kvar av det vi byggt. Inget känns tryggt. Ingen signal. Inget finns kvar av det vi byggt. Inget känns tryggt. Ingen signal. Inget finns kvar av det vi byggt. Inget känns tryggt.
Alkoholism, högfärdighet, social utsatthet. Livet på landet är lika svårt som det i staden. Fråga någon säger det. Du blir utsatt för dömande blickar och ingen svarar på ditt hej. Att vara trygg är viktigare än artighet, visade sig. Grannarna hälsar på dig men pratar sedan bakom din rygg. Inte undra på att man låser in sig och att man har blivit så ljusskygg. Och när dagen flyr fylls vägarna av rattfyllerister. Och alla rackare är inget annat än bilburna nazister. Utan körkort och bil får du cykla eller gå. Utbyggd lokaltrafik är det inte lönsamt att satsa på. Livet på landet i denna ort. I livet på landet runt smått och stort. Det är mycket som händer vi inte kan förstå. Men man finner ju svaret djupt där inne ändå. Livet på landet i denna ort. I livet på landet runt smått och stort. Det är mycket som händer vi inte kan förstå. Men man finner ju svaret där inne ändå.
Dimman lättar upp och jag ser något framför mig. Är det en drömvärld eller min verklighet som speglas i mitt egna sinne? Som är så förvirrat som allt annat omkring mig. Var befinner jag mig?
jag känner mig matt och trött. Men sakta ser jag färgernas framtoning och nyanser som skymmer ljuset som är så långt framför mig. Och det känns åtkomligt om jag anstränger mig. Allt känns så lugnt, fint och vackert vart jag än vänder mig. Hur kommer det sig att det här händer mig? Sover jag fortfarande? Jag skrek allt jag hade på hjälp men ingen svarade. Inte ens min inre röst i det här dött lopp är jag fast här. Denna framfärd genom detta landskap känns overklig men ack så verklig samtidigt. Jag vet inte vad som är vad. Det är som om jag existerar mellan dröm och verklighet och inget känns konkret i överhuvudtaget. Inget känns konkret i överhuvudtaget. Fan. Jag ska vara på ett visst sätt, göra saker på ett visst sätt, leva på ett visst sätt, men det tänker jag fan inte göra. Jag tänker bara leva som jag själv lär och fortsätta framåt som om ingenting annat än min egna sfär har en betydelse och samtidigt sträva efter förnyelse och något annorlunda. Jag tänker inte blunda en sekund, för då kan man missa någon viktig detalj som kan ändra hela min uppfattning om allting. Så jag fortsätter min vandring in i mörkrets dunkla korridorer för att försöka förstå varför allt är som det är. För de förutmjukar oss med deras egna existens. Detta inkompetenta tänker så omvänt att man till slut inte vet vad man ska tro. Ibland behöver man bränna en bro eller två för att komma någonstans. Men det finns inte en chans att vi kommer komma överens. De är ett skämt och det vet de om. Vi kommer alltid gå emot varandra gång på gång. Men det de inte vet är att vi alltid har övertaget och kommer alltid att vinna. Så det spelar ingen roll vad de egentligen gör.
Ja. Stilen är en tigerbit i jycken. Texter, vitsen sliter vi i stycken. Ingen tipper, glimmer eller smycken. Alltid skitigt i vad ni tycker. Ångest sätter sig för mina tankar. Konsten i effekt, jag vill bara dansa. Gör det här men bara för min klick. Ingen supa, bara röker splitt. Söker efter något som betyder. Glöder ut i kosmos, ut i rymden. Ingen sömn, jag sprättade upp stygnen. Flitigt sen jag föddes litet yngre. Vet att många hatar på min sång, men de som sover vaknar upp i ångest. Nonstop året om min klick är golden. Koll på ormar, klipper dig med tången. Sluta tyck och gör bara din grej. Slut en cirkel, mörda blitz på tape. Skjuter i er skräp så screams och plays. Hänger där ni tror ska vara place. Vad ni än gör ger ni fan i mig. De skriver utan själ och utan brains. Sådan slöseri, ett sådant waste. Slutet av idag, ni är så fake. Jag ska vara på ett visst sätt, göra saker på ett visst sätt. Jag drar med mitt rymdskepp, här tänker jag fan inte vara. De säger att jag ska vara på ett visst sätt, göra saker på ett visst sätt. Jag drar med mitt rymdskepp, här tänker jag fan inte vara. Astrala hybriderna. kompromisslös konst hela jävla livet ut.
Hur långt kan man gå i förödmjukelse i det här förbannade landet? Kan du svara mig på det, Rigmor?
De säger att jag ska vara på ett visst sätt, göra saker på ett visst sätt, leva på ett visst sätt, men det tänker jag fan inte göra. Jag tänker bara leva som jag själv lär och fortsätta framåt som om ingenting annat än min egna sfär har en betydelse.
Hur långt kan man gå i förödmjukelse i det här förbannade landet? Kan du svara mig på det, Rigmor?
De säger att jag ska vara på ett visst sätt, göra saker på ett visst sätt, leva på ett visst sätt, men det tänker jag fan inte göra. Jag tänker bara leva som jag själv lär och fortsätta framåt som om ingenting annat än min egna sfär har en betydelse, och samtidigt sträva efter förnyelse och något annorlunda. Jag tänker inte blunda en sekund, för då kan man missa någon viktig detalj som kan ändra hela min uppfattning om allting. Så jag fortsätter min vandring in i mörkrets dunkla korridorer för att försöka förstå varför allt är som det är. För de förutmjukar oss med deras egna existens. Detta inkompetenta tänker så omvänt att man till slut inte vet vad man ska tro. Ibland behöver man bränna en bro eller två för att komma någonstans, men det finns inte en chans att vi kommer komma överens. De är ett skämt och det vet de om. Vi kommer alltid gå emot varandra gång på gång. Men det de inte vet är att vi alltid har övertaget och kommer alltid att vinna. Så det spelar ingen roll vad de egentligen gör.
Ja. Stilen är en tigerbit i jycken. Texter, vitsen sliter vi i stycken. Ingen tipper, glimmer eller smycken. Alltid skitigt i vad ni tycker. Ångest sätter käpp för mina tankar. Konsten i effekt, jag vill bara dansa. Gör det här men bara för min klick. Ingen supa, bara röker splitt. Söker efter något som betyder. Glöder ut i kosmos, ut i rymden. Ingen sömn, jag sprättade upp stygnen. Flitigt sen jag föddes litet yngre. Vet att många hatar på min sång, men de som sover vaknar upp i ångest. Nonstop året om min klick är golden. Koll på ormar, klipper dig med tången. Sluta tyck och gör bara din grej. Slut en cirkel, mördar blitz på tape. Skjuter i er skräp så streams och plays. Hänger där ni tror ska bara place. Vad ni än gör ger ni fan i mig. De skriver utan själ och utan brains. Sådan slöseri, ett sådant waste. Slutet av er dag, ni är så fake. Jag ska bara på ett visst sätt, göra saker på ett visst sätt. Jag drar med mitt rymdskepp, här tänker jag fan inte vara. De säger att jag ska vara på ett visst sätt, göra saker på ett visst sätt. Jag drar med mitt rymdskepp, här tänker jag fan inte vara. Astrala hybriderna, kompromisslös konst hela jävla livet ut.
So welcome to my inner thoughts again. It's been a while since last time, and everything is almost the same routines and the same games of destruction, and a lot of confusion to make my inner even more cloudy and difficult. But all this inspirational people walking this earth makes it all wonderful. And I'm still out in the suburb, and I'm still fucking awesome. It's just my daily routine that makes it a little more boring than it usually is. But everyone needs structure, and I'm not complaining. It's just the same thing over and over and over and over again. And the inspiration is fading away, but I'm still here and I'm still looking for progressive paths and new ways to think and act. This fast tempo makes me react, but I'm not acting out my dreams and plans. I feel stagnated, like as if the world is spinning around me and I was just standing still. I feel tired as hell and no motivation to do anything at all. So I just fall through emotion and the same routine every single day. It's all work and no play. I love my work so it's okay, but I'm always looking for better days, better patterns for me to move forward. But I'm accepting the situation as it is. This is my life, and I can't explain how much I love my wife and how she makes this life worth living. She's given me a reason to continue this daily basis destructive behavior, because with her I can accomplish anything and nothing feels boring. I love you, 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 I love you so much. I love you, I love you so much. I love you, I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. Go to sleep, sleep well, wake up, go to work, work hard, make your living, get tired, go home. Go to sleep, sleep well, wake up, go to work, work hard, make your living, get tired, go home. Go to sleep, sleep well, wake up, go to work, work hard, make your living, get tired, go home. Go to sleep, sleep well, wake up, go to work, work hard, make your living, get tired, go home. Go to sleep, sleep well, wake up, go to work, work hard, make your living, get tired, go home. Go to sleep, sleep well, wake up, go to work, work hard, make your living, get tired, go home. Go to sleep, sleep well, wake up, go to work, work hard, make your living, get tired, go home. Go to sleep, sleep well, wake up, go to work, work hard, make your living, get tired, go home. Go to sleep, sleep well, wake up, go to work, work hard, make your living, get tired, go home. Go to sleep, sleep well, wake up, go to work, work hard, make your living, get tired, go home. Go to sleep, get tired, go home. Get tired, go home. Get tired, go home. Go to sleep, sleep well, wake up, go to work, work hard, make your living, get tired, go home. Daily basis destruction. Get tired, go home. Daily basis destruction.
älskade Småland. Du är lika bister nu som då, och skördarna var små men det gick an. Ja, det fick gå. Och Småland, envisa Småland. Guldet blev till sand, men din jord blev till glas. Som om utvandringsåren bara varit en fas. Och Småland, skapande Småland. Ugnarna släckta, där eldarna brann. Alla löften är brutna, alla jobben försvann. Och Småland, utsålda Småland.
Detta är en berättelse om några människor som från sina hem i Juder i Småland vandrade till Nordamerika. De var de första som utflyttade från sin ort. De kom från de små stugornas och de stora barnkullarnas land. De var jordens folk och de kom från en släkt som sedan årtusenden hade brukat den jord de lämnade.